Guys, we are back. Back for another week. Back to record. Back on this June 12th. Back on this Sunday. We are ready. Oh, man. I'm getting Hawks basketball restless. And, well, we're back to record. Today, I couldn't bring in – I don't know where Garrick is. Somebody's going to have to go find him. He hasn't been in a while. I feel like I haven't talked to him. But you know who I got on my end with me? We're going to talk 100% draft, well, mostly draft today. And I had to go no further than get the expert in all draft-related things, all mock drafts and everything. Had to get Patrick back on. Patrick, what's happening? It's been a while.
Yeah, man. We're 11 days away from draft time, and I'm trying to stay cool this summer and to wait and see who the Hawks choose to not draft on draft night.
See who they trade for, and
right.
You want to throw all your papers up in the air.
Yeah. I'm holding out for Dion Waiters this year. I'm just kidding.
God.
Please, God, no.
Oh, God. If that happens. Let's just say, like, I'm not upset per se with how we've drafted. I'm just kind of like, sure, whatever. That's kind of my attitude. But if they do something like that again, like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel, Patrick. But anyway, you're here with me to talk draft. So, man, how you been though? We haven't talked in a while. I'm sure the people want to know what you've been up to, man.
Yeah, well, I'm just still, recovering from life without the Hawks or college basketball. So I have to bide my time with soccer, I guess. So I don't want to say anything that might offend LeBron and hurt his feelings. Because that seems to be easy to do all of a sudden.
So, talking about soccer, just a reminder, guys, we have a soccer podcast featuring Matt, who is going over the European Championship and predicting games. He basically went perfect on his predictions from week one. So,
really?
Be sure.
So he had Wales over Slovakia. If that's the case, that's impressive.
Yeah, he had Wales over Slovakia. The only thing he got wrong was he thought England would lose, and it was a tie.
Yeah.
England
should have won. They dominated that game.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't feel good with England, but he was talking about with Slovakia. He was saying they have certain players on there. He was going through the players, man. Anybody listening to this, go check out our soccer podcast. We have next week's predictions up there. Anyway, let's get into this draft talk. Who the potential new Atlanta Hawk will be. Patrick, because I'm always forgetting, and I always say we're picking 22, and that must be the wrong answer. Where are we picking at this year?
So we've got the 21st pick, and then we've got the 44th pick and the 54th pick.
54.
And something to keep in mind is that next year we potentially we have the Timberwolves pick for next season, 2017, if the Wolves make the playoffs, but we could deal that pick. So I mean, Atlanta's got some options of some additional picks to throw in to move up and down, which since we've basically been doing that half the time, it wouldn't be a surprise.
Boy. So, we're going to be talking about, everyone listening, we're going to be talking about this draft pick as if we do not think Jeff – we're just going to imagine Jeff Teague is going to be a Hawk next year, and we're going to be picking at 21. We're not going to be predicting where we would pick at if we move up. Let's just go ahead and get that out on the record right now.
Sure.
So,
while we're at it, the big news this week was find out that Jeff Teague's been hurt and playing hurt. Which I think is interesting because it probably does hurt his his trade status a little bit, and it's a little more encouraging that maybe that's why he had he did seem a little slower. So, we'll see. I would say it probably means more likely that Teague gets traded after draft day now instead of before too. So
it's a good point. We were lacking those random dunks that he'll do mid-game. It kind of explained him saying that he had an injury. kind of explained a lot, especially that month where I guess you could tell when it happened, January, February, when he just looked bad.
Yeah.
He was getting beat. And I wonder if that was, that was when it happened. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the 21st pick. Who are some guys around this area that you would keep an eye on?
Well, it's tough because you look at, like, let's just look at some examples. Wade Baldwin played Vanderbilt. This is a point guard. I think he's more of a shooting guard in the NBA. Most of them have him listed as a combo. He's listed as high as number 10 and as low as 35 if you look at credible mock drafts. So part of me says he could be available at 21. I think combo guard, as long as they can shoot, is an interesting situation for Atlanta, because now with Matt gone, there's really not someone for that spot for the third point guard that could play off the ball too. So Wade Baldwin's a guy that I think Atlanta would look at. I think he's going to be gone before he gets to us. But he's also an example of the fact he's got that wide range. Is there's not a lot of drop off from 10 to 12 all the way down to about 35 to 40, in my opinion. So when you're picking 21, it's hard to narrow it down to a few players because it's a pretty wide range of guys. You can narrow it down a little bit because, to me, if a player is a freshman, until Atlanta chooses a freshman in a draft, I'm kind of crossing them off the list. The Spurs system's never taken a freshman for the most part. Pretty much everybody that's drafted there for the last 15, 20 years. So, that helps a little bit. But a few guys, if you think about, for me, Atlanta needs to improve rebounding. You can do that more than just at the forward position. It means if you bring any guards in, got to think about if they can rebound. We obviously still need to improve our shooting. Atlanta is the worst shooting team considered a good shooting team I've ever seen. We actually aren't a great shooting team, especially when you take Kyle out of the equation. We obviously want to always be bringing in more defense because we want to maintain what we had. But I think, unlike recent seasons in the draft, for me, I think shooting's got to be more of a priority than defense at this point, because we've shown an ability to defend with what we've got. So a few players that I think to keep an eye on in the range that we're at. A little bit of a reach would be DeAndre Bembry. I talked about him last time I was on. He's from St. Joseph's. Actually, it was funny. I shared an article today was comparing him to KJ McDaniels, which made me laugh. He's a better shooter than McDaniel was coming. He's not the athlete McDaniels was, but he's a better shooter than McDaniels was coming out of college. But Bembry's got some limitations there. But Bembry is a guy was the best player on his team. Played pretty well in his NCAA tournament games. Probably has a lot of upside left. Young player, kind of a scrappy guy, and a guy that's been associated as the kind of guy that wants to go into a development system that emphasizes team. Also, he's got a great afro, so I think that's a big factor. We need a great afro in Atlanta, and so Bembry's got great size. Little inconsistent on defense, but it's hard with those guys at a small school because they're usually covering the best player on the other team the whole game. So it's easy for them to take series off when they're just having to catch their breath when they're playing 38 minutes a game. But anyway, I like Bembry a lot. He'd be a guy that there's only a few guys that I think would get me excited at 21, and Bembry's one that I would look forward to. Three foreign guys to keep an eye on are Juan Hernan Gomez, Ante Zizic, and Ivica Zubac. They'll all go somewhere in that range. They're all three kind of bigs. Hernan Gomez, I think, would want to come over pretty soon. The other two might be able to be stashed. But those are bigs. One problem with this draft, Josh, is really when you're picking at 21, the strength of this draft are a lot of guys that are a lot like what we've already got. I mean, there's a lot of guys that look a lot like either Mike Muscala or Walter Tavares, either big guys who needed to, like, really big guys who need to develop and have a lot of length but aren't very offensively skilled. A lot of international guys like that this year. And then a lot of these kind of like senior college power forwards, like Bryce Johnson, who does bring some stuff Muscala doesn't. But guys who we don't really have a huge need for right now. They duplicate Millsap, they duplicate Horford. There's not a lot of highly skilled players that are going to come in and be immediate physical rebounders, which is obviously something that would help us out a little bit. I think Bryce Johnson is a guy that's probably going to be available at 21 that I think would be a good choice. Obviously, he's the one that's got a lot of name recognition. Most people know him because he has such a good NCAA tournament. And I do think he'd bring some stuff that we don't have. I mean, he is extremely long, and this season showed more desire to be more physical, which had been his problem in the past. So I definitely have him on my watch list. Torian Prince.
Now. Huh? I said I'm looking him up now, but go ahead.
And then Torian Prince, I think we've seen a lot of discussion on the boards throughout the year from Baylor. I'm not a big fan of his game, but he's definitely a 3-and-D type guy. For me, in big games, he kind of seems to not play as well, which bothers me a little bit. But he definitely brings some athleticism. Demetrius Jackson from Notre Dame. He's kind of an undersized point guard, but he fits the combo guard role in that he's short. But, Dennis is a longer player, so sometimes he can cover a 2-guard. And the problem is you don't want Dennis playing off the ball on offense, but it's okay for him to cover a 2. So you can kind of flip-flop and let Demetrius cover a smaller guy on D. But Demetrius is a much better player off the ball. He actually played off the ball with Jeremy Grant for most of his career until this season. And that's what they did. Grant would cover the taller player, and Demetrius covered the smaller player, but then on offense they would flip. And so Demetrius Jackson – I really like him. Of course, I liked Jerry and Grant a lot last year too. I think Grant's a little bit better player than Jackson, but Jackson would seem to fit. Even if again, we're gonna assume Teague and Schroeder are still there, but now you got. I think one thing to think about in the draft is having some insurance if one of them was to be dealt, or one of them assumes going to be gone after next season. I think we're definitely not looking at signing both of them after next season. So. I think the positions that I look at in general is it'd be nice to have a combo guard and anything that adds shooting on the wings.
So let me ask you real quick. You mentioned Torian Grant.
Torian Prince.
Prince, darn it. I'm getting the names mixed up. You mentioned him a little bit while ago. You said you weren't a fan of his game, or at least how it would translate. Why is that? Because that's a name I've seen actually come up a few times.
Yeah. Well, he's a good athlete and he's a good shooter. He fits the 3-and-D role. He's not he doesn't seem to be a ball hog. He's not a good passer, but he's a willing passer. He doesn't seem to be, a guy that needs the ball, which is what you're always looking for nowadays is, Atlanta's a team that actually get a handle a guy that needed the ball because we don't have a lot of ball hogs. But I don't see a guy when he seems to be in the big games, if he's playing Kansas or he just disappears from the game for me. So that makes me nervous. Those are the kind of guys that bother me. But you don't know how guys will be when they get on a big stage, and Baylor's a weird team anyway. They didn't have a lot of leadership this year. So, but that's what I'm trying to hit some of the names too, especially that we've seen pop up. Brad's done such a good job of covering the mock drafts on our Peachtree boards this year.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people I've seen a lot of people mention the other Vanderbilt kid, Damian Jones, this big center. I just don't see that. I think he's a very flat-footed player, doesn't have any range. I don't think he does anything for us and he's another player that's disappeared in big games. A lot of people have had him with us. I don't see that. I think he's definitely going to be available around that time. I'll tell you a guy I would like to see us move up for a few spots. I haven't seen him below about 18th in the draft, but I love Domantas Sabonis from Gonzaga. I think he can shoot. I know he can shoot, and he brings some physicality that can help us a lot. And those are guys that are hard to find. So I really like him. He's a guy I wouldn't mind adding a second-round pick to get up. Other than him, really, in order to get up to someone I would want, you got to move up to like 7th or 8th. And that just seems like a whole lot you'd have to give away to get there. Just in general, to me in this draft, you want to either have the first 2 picks or be between 7 and 10. And if not, I'd almost rather just be picking 31st. Go ahead and get in the second round where the money's not guaranteed. Some of these guys I'm naming, a couple of them are going to fall in the second round. Just take whatever's the best left at that time. That's kind of how I felt about last year's draft too. I didn't have a problem with trading out of the 15th slot. I just would have traded further down. I just can't. I was hoping we were just going to keep on dealing and keep picking up, extra picks because I didn't really like many players at that point anyway. But So people don't want to hear that, but I wouldn't panic if we trade down. I think the odds of us having a player at 21 that's going to help us next year is slim. If there is a one guy there, I mean, Denzel Valentine, if he falls to us, I mean, he's definitely a guard that can rebound. I don't know who he's going to defend in the NBA. There's not a lot of. I mean, he can probably cover Dougie McBuckets. They're probably slow enough to handle each other.
I'm sorry. Who was this?
Doug McDermott from Chicago.
Oh, no. I was just what?
Oh, Denzel Valentine.
Oh, Denzel Valentine.
I mean, they both could like follow each other slowly around the court and be okay. But Denzel, I love him as a college player. I love McDermott as a college player, but it's a different game at the next level. And I think Denzel is going to have some issues defensively. That said, we'd be lucky if he fell to 21. I think he'll probably go a little higher than that.
So Denzel Valentine's a name I keep hearing pop up like basically everywhere. So he's a bad defender, but is he does he make up for it on the offensive end?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most productive offensive players in the last decade in college basketball, and one of the most unique players. I mean, it seemed like he got a triple-double every game. So, I mean, he's a 6'2". I think he's actually 6'4". He's a 6'4" point guard that plays like a power forward. Like he almost plays like Anthony Mason at times. I mean, he's not that big, but he kind of has that game where he looks a lot. You think he's bigger than he is. But, he would help our rebounding. I also think, I mean, we get a lot of assists because of our style, but we have a lot of guys that turn the ball over a lot for how many assists they get. And Denzel's really good at handling the ball and moving it around. So, I mean, if Denzel fell to 21, I would like that pick. I don't think he'll fall that far. But again, I've seen Denzel everywhere from 14 to 30. Just depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, I'm seeing him just pop up everywhere. But that was one guy I was curious about asking. That would be interesting if the Hawks wanted to make a move, like just hypothetically after the draft. It'd be interesting to know that you have him in your back pocket in case of emergency.
Well, I mean, he's small, he's undersized, but he could play the three just because he's so physical. I mean, especially in a league where people go small, Denzel, shoot, I know this sounds crazy because he's only 6'4", but I could see him playing even the 4. I mean, we got guys 6'6" and 6'7" playing power forward in small ball lineups. He could even give you minutes there in a small ball situation. So he's a really unique player. The problem with unique players is they're also unique because you're not quite sure what they're going to do. And I'm not quite sure where he's going to fit. I don't know who he's going to cover, which is always my problem with McDermott is I didn't know who he was going to cover. But he definitely would fit Atlanta, and he definitely would bring some toughness, and anything that helps our rebounding right now would be greatly appreciated. And like I said, if I'm going to love other combo guards like Demetrius Jackson, Denzel's he's a combo point guard wing something. I don't even know what you call that kind of player. But he definitely would be a guy that you could use to match up with certain players. If a guy comes in who's limited offensively, you could be like, okay, let's get Denzel in there because he can cover that guy. And then he can score and move the ball around the other end.
Well then. It's interesting. Well, we got some good stuff today. So, realistically, if you had to take a guess, who would they take at that spot? If you had to take a guess.
If we were picking 21 right now, of all the names I've seen, I think the Zizic, I would say Ante Zizic, would make the most sense because I think they would probably try to stash him. And of the players that right now are projected to be available at 21, I don't think Atlanta's going to see a guy that they think can play right away. And if he's not going to play right away, and you got a European player with the same talent, it makes sense to stash them because you get to delay their contract a year. And I mean, it gets frustrating for fans, but the league is loaded with those teams that were patient with those type players. And then later you got to kid that's playing for you on a contract from 24 to 27 instead of from 21 to 25 or whatever. So that's just, I mean, that's, who knows? Nobody knows what the Hawks will do, but he makes the most sense. And the other thing is, when you get that player, it doesn't matter what their position is, because you're delaying them far enough down the road that whatever position they play, you can work around. Rather than trying to figure out what the guy you don't think is going to make it.
Good point. Good point. Okay. That is something. So everybody, you hear us now. We have our guess of who we're going to get. That's actually a good reason too, because not available to play now, so it would make sense for the stash. So behind it, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm not. The other problem, and I have to admit my own biases. I'm not a big fan of the D-League. I mean, I'd rather have a guy play in the D-League than sit in the bench and not playing for his pro team. But I do think players develop better in Europe than they do in the D-League. I mean, Patterson's a great example. He put up numbers in Europe that looked awful, and then look what he was when he got back. I mean, he didn't even look the same guy in summer league, and then even more so in the fall. Whereas you'll see guys in the D-League put up 28 points a night, and then they come out and play the next summer league, and they look the same, like the same guy. So I think Europe's doing a better job of developing guys. And again, if you put them in the D-League, you got to pay them while they're playing in the D-League. And the big deal is not the money. The big deal is you're starting their contract.
Yeah, and you're taking up a roster spot as well.
Yeah, and that's one reason why the Atlanta didn't want. That was one reason for the Nogueira trade. Was Nogueira was ready to come over, and we didn't want him over here yet. We didn't want to start the clock on him. And look what's happened. He's done nothing. And he'd just be sitting on the bench, not playing for somebody while you're paying him.
That's a good point. Very good point. Well, guys, we got through that pretty quick. Well,
do you want to talk about? You want to talk about some second rounders?
Sure. Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Again, if I'm going to say, well, if it was me, I don't mind us going ahead and trading back to 31, 32. I know Boston Celtics have a 31 pick, which I think is interesting because having the 3 picks kind of like one of the worst picks to have in this draft, because you miss out on the 2 guys that everybody feels is going to be great. But they get to make up for it by having the 31 pick, which I think is one of the best spots to be in, because now you get to sign a guy that you don't have to guarantee money to, and you can negotiate whatever contract you need to. The second round guys, I know I've talked about Karis LeVert a lot. We've seen his name on the boards a lot. In our efforts to continue to get Michigan players so that we can just have the entire Michigan Final Four team, we should just go ahead and take Karis LeVert. And that way him and Hardaway and Stauskas can just all play together should we acquire Stauskas in the rumored trades. And then we can go ahead and sign Glenn Robinson, and we'll just have the whole crew together. But, LeVert was – I'm pretty sure before last season, for 2014, I had LeVert number 5 on my board before his 2 injuries. I mean, you got a chance to get a guy that's a lottery pick in talent. Maybe he doesn't stay healthy, but it seems like a pretty good roll of the dice in the second round. If I could get to 31 and take LeVert, I'd be ecstatic. I'd rather have that than anybody sitting at 21. So he's definitely a guy. He's 6'7", and he shot 40% from the 3-point line in college. And he has one of the best assist-to-turnover ratios. He has a better assist-to-turnover ratio than most point guards. So you basically get a 2 guard that can pass and handle the basketball, and is 6'7", who's got the potential to become a very strong defender. I think he's already a pretty good defender. He's a toothpick. I mean, he's tiny. He's skinny. But, I mean, the guy can play. He may never play. He may keep hurting his feet. We'll have to see what happens. But I would love to have him. Patrick McCaw could go late first round or second round. Probably a lot of people don't know much about him. He's from UNLV. He is a energetic shooting guard, steals the ball, I'm surprised how many people haven't seen him play, but he's just a really high energy guy. He's the kind of guy you can really see sparking off the bench defensively. Really long arms. So him, Malcolm Brogdon, who played point guard at Virginia, that's another guy who can rebound and bring you some toughness at the point guard spot. He can shoot a little bit. Here's a name. People don't like foreign guys. I know they're boring, But there is a guy from Germany named Paul Zipser who's a small forward. He's got a little bit of a more American game. He's a little bit better athlete. So if you see that name come off the board, I think that's a guy to be excited about. He actually was like a top 20 player and really was pretty productive this year, but for some reason boards have dropped him into the second round. Atlanta fans will know a guy named Robert Carter that transferred from Georgia Tech. Went to Maryland. Went to Maryland this year, was a junior. 2 months ago, he wasn't even on anybody's radar. I've had him as a sleeper all year. I've liked Carter ever since he was a freshman at Tech. Now, he's a guy that can shoot, probably some defensive limitations, but he can rebound and shoot. Be a great fit for Atlanta. Probably going to go somewhere in the 40s or 50s. I like him for Atlanta. There's a lot of point guards that are going to go in the second round. There's hardly any point guards in the first round. But you got Chris Dunn and Demetrius Jackson and Wayne Baldwin, and then Tyler Ulis will probably be the fourth guy. And then there's kind of a drop off, and we got like 5 or 6 point guards that, depending on who you ask. I really like Gary Payton II, and he would bring some defense right away. Not much of a shooter.
So would you say defense? So are we saying defense because of his name, or like he's legit?
I mean, he plays like his dad. He does. I mean, he plays like his dad, and he's raw. Like he played JUCO ball, but really productive. But yeah, I mean, he's to think he's going to be like his dad isn't accurate because he's nowhere near the offensive player. But on defense, he ain't his dad, but he's pretty dang good. I mean, he's not one of the greatest defensive point guards ever, but he lives up to his dad's name in the way he plays D. And he actually is a little bit thicker than his dad. At least, Gary Payton was never big, but he was really tiny coming out of college, and so his kid's a little bit bigger. But he'd be an interesting fit with Atlanta because of defense. I've seen Cat Barber and Kay Felder and some other guys like that linked with Atlanta because of the idea that they're going to need a third point guard. I'm not a big fan. I outside of Gary Payton and Brogdon, most of the point guards, I'd rather just wait and take an undrafted guy. I mean, you still got guys like Marcus Page out of North Carolina, Isaiah Taylor out of Texas. Some of those guys aren't even expected to get drafted, and I think they're on par with some of these guys that will. So I'm not a big fan of there's a lot of decent point guards in the draft, but I don't think it's a great position to draft unless it's a guy that can play off the ball too. Let's see, who else for the second round? Elgin Cook from Oregon's kind of a sleeper. He had a really good game against was it Duke? I'm trying to remember who he played against in the tournament when he had such a good breakout game. But Elgin Cook's kind of a physical small forward sleeper. And I get a lot of names too that are probably not going to get drafted that to me they're as good as the 40th pick. And if that's the case, then why move up go ahead and pick 44th and 54th and just take who you think is the best player at that point. So that's probably it. I think Brogdon, McCall, LeVert, Zipser, Carter, those are all guys. Oh, I know, Sheldon McClellan out of Miami.
There we go. One last one.
Yeah. Sheldon McClellan out of Miami. He's a hot and cold player, but man, when he's hot, he can lock you down on D. He's got great size, great range. I mean, he's the kind of guy that I feel like if you got him in Atlanta's system to develop, he could really become. He reminds me kind of a Wes Matthews with more size. So I really liked McClellan. I have to say he's a player that probably around January I was like, why do people? I don't get this guy. Like, what's the hype? And as the season went on, I just was kind of more and more. I was like, he's got a mature game. Like, he has moments where he takes a lot of bad shots, but it's kind of like he's just so frustrated his teammates aren't getting it done. And I kind of like that about him. I think he actually would fit pretty well in a system because I think most of the bad shots he takes out of frustration, not out of just because he wants to hog the ball. So I like him. And Jim Larinaga is I really like him as a coach, and I think he's done a good job with McClellan. So that's a guy that, every year there's a couple of second rounders that play right away and kind of surprise everybody. He's kind of the one I could see doing that this year.
Okay. Well then, that's That's definitely good. Well, we got a good amount of draft talk today, Patrick. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Always love it.
Thank you. So, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to hear from the people. So let's go ahead and let's hear from the people. Take some calls in and talk to them.